Good evening. I'd like to thank all of you for attending tonight. It's a good-looking crowd. My name is Derek Yonai, and on behalf of the Lundy Chair of Business Philosophy, it's my honor to welcome you. Tonight, our speaker is Dr. Michael Munger. Dr. Munger earned his PhD in political economy at Washington University in 1984, and he went on to work at the Federal Trade Commission thereafter. He's held teaching positions at Dartmouth, University of Texas Austin, UNC Chapel Hill, and currently holds a teaching position at Duke. In 2000, he was promoted to department chair of the political science department at Duke.
I don't know if that's a promotion.
In addition to the over 80 journal articles he's written, he's also co-authored 3 books with Melvin Hinnage. They are Ideology and the Theory of Political Choice, Analytical Politics, and Empirical Studies in Comparative Politics. Dr. Munger is a past president of the Public Choice Society and is currently serving as a North American editor for the journal Public Choice. And if he wasn't busy enough, he also decided to run for governor of this state. So please join me in welcoming our speaker this evening, Dr. Michael Munger.
Well, thanks very much. I'm glad to be here. I gave 2 lectures early today, and it's late enough that I hope we can have some fun. Keep you all from falling asleep if nothing else. Having just driven here from Raleigh, I'm going to need some help. I had asked Derek for a computer, but all he had was a Mac, so we're going to have to make do. I want to start out, this talk in a way is about democracy. Democracy is a word a lot of you have heard. You probably have some definition of it. By the way, I'm happy to share this PowerPoint. Derek has a copy of it, so any of you want to send him or me an email, I will return you that copy. It'll certainly make all of its large volume of useful information much better available, although if taking notes keeps you awake, I couldn't blame you. Let me say that what I want to start out with is the perception that many of the founders of the American experiment had of the idea of democracy. Most of us now, I think, tend to think of democracy as being almost synonymous with good government. But let me ask you this. How many of you think that Roe versus Wade, the decision Roe versus Wade, should be sustained, should be kept? There's a few. How many of you think that the Second Amendment should be kept? More. If you add those 2 together, it's quite a few of you. How many of you think that democracy is a good thing? Equivocal. What would happen if Roe versus Wade were to be overturned? Democracy would break out. Individual states would decide by majority what sort of rights people had. What would happen if the Second Amendment were overturned, were repealed? Democracy would break out. In fact, each of the first 10 amendments is explicitly, couldn't be more explicit. Each of the first 10 amendments is explicitly designed to prevent the outbreak of democracy. If by democracy you mean majority rule. And if you don't mean majority rule, I'm not sure what you do mean. Majority rule is a very central part of democracy. The word democracy, in terms of its Greek etymological forebears, can easily be translated simply as mob rule. Mob rule. Well, let's look briefly at 3 historical antecedents that the founders would have been aware of. From Plato, democracy is precisely the constitution out of which tyranny comes. From extreme liberty, it seems, comes a slavery most complete and most cruel. When a democratic city gets worthless butlers presiding over its wine, it is drunk too deep of liberty's heady draught. Then I think if the rulers are not very obliging and will provide plenty of liberty, it calls them blackguards and oligarchs and chastises them. And any who obey the rulers, they trample in the dust as willing slaves and not worth a job. So there's a paradox in democracy. Who's the boss in a democracy? Is it the people, or is it the elected officials? I'm a professor, not a knower. My favorite of Shakespeare's plays, Tragedy of Coriolanus. And it's important that this be read the right way, because otherwise the words just lie there inert on the page. So forgive my histrionics. Now what's happened here is that Coriolanus is wearing the robe of humility, which he opens up to show his wounds. So he stands in the public square and voters walk by, and he shows them literally his wounds. These are the things that I have sacrificed for my nation. And they run their fingers along the scars of his wounds, so that they can know the sacrifices that he has made, so they can decide whether to provide to him or withhold from him their permission to serve as their master. So the paradox of democracy is we are asking, someone who is a leader, someone who's running for office, is asking for your permission to serve as your master. Now Coriolanus was the greatest general of his time. He had defeated all of the armies of their opponents. Both citizens, as they walk away after having touched his wounds in a very humiliating sort of way, as if he were an animal. And this is something that we do at press conferences, I think. We sort of touch the wounds of our elected officials. Both the citizens say, "The gods give you joy, sir, heartily." And they leave. And he says, "Most sweet voices," sarcastically. And then he says off to himself, "Better it is to die. Better to starve than crave the hire which first we do deserve. Why, in this wolvish togue, should I stand here to beg of Hob and Dick that do appear? Their needless vouches. Custom calls me to it. What custom wills in all things should we do it? The dust on antique time would lie unswept, and mountainous air be too highly hept for truth or beer. Rather than fool it so, let the high office and the honor go to one who would do thus. So forget it, I quit. Needless vouches is votes. I don't need your permission. I'm better than you. I am the general who has saved you from your enemies. Why do I need your permission when we all know I'm the best man?" This was not a very successful campaign platform. But then he says, "Oh, I'm half through. The one part suffered, the other I will do." So he changes his mind. He goes back and says, "I'm going to face this." And again, this is a conception that the founders would have had. Campaigning was unheard of. It was unseemly. The perception of the founders was, look what I've done. The perception of the founders was that the office should seek the man, not the man the office. You would never campaign. Sort of long for those days. I think the 2008 election started in 2002. And from Aristides, from Plutarch's Lives of the Noble Greeks and Romans. The setting here is that Aristides, who was one of the archons of Athens, the chief archon, in fact, he was the chief judge, constantly was called the just, Aristides the just. They had a practice we now think of